Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. It's good to be back over on this side. I miss being in the House, but I'm enjoying the Senate. Supporting Israel is a real important thing that we need to do. I've done a Israel resolution every year for 13 years. This will be my 13th year supporting Israel. And Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East, and sending a message to Congress is basically what a resolution does, asking Congress to support Israel. And obviously this was filed months ago, and we see what's going on over in the Middle East, and they need our support more than ever. And we're just sending a message with this resolution. Some of these amendments were given to me by Tony Perkins, who got some of this language from Benjamin Netanyahu. And so we incorporated that over on the Senate side, and it's just a concurrent resolution.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Any questions on the resolution? Okay. Oh, Representative Bayham.
The appropriate time, I'd like to move favorable, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Representative Bayham. We do have some cards, so we're going to go to the cards. If you want to let some of the witnesses come up, we're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Bruce Riley. These are in opposition wishing to speak. Mr. Bruce Riley. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Bruce Riley with a vote. I would first like to say that, I first encountered this issue of Israel and Palestine when I was trying to figure out why a Marine barracks got hit by a truck bomb in Beirut when I was a young person. Now, some of you may not be old enough to remember that, but some of you are. And it got me thinking and studying and doing my homework, as they say, and reading some great Jewish writers, some great Palestinian writers, and learning quite a bit. And we're at a place right now in history where there is an actual genocide occurring. And if one were to look up the definition of genocide and see what's happening with 40,000 people being killed, children, women, and men, hospitals being bombed, hostages being taken from the West Bank and from Gaza. The West Bank has been occupied for many, many years, and an occupation is illegal under international law. And people talk about two-state solutions and yet only advocate for one state. I believe in a two-state solution, and so did the United Nations way back when. And the United Nations that created Israel has consistently called on Israel to pull back to those original borders, and they have not. And they continue to expand. They continue to build settlements on other people's land. For those that believe in property rights, you should believe that the right that the people had was sacred, and it can't be taken through violence. But we're here encouraging what's happening, not just by resolutions, but with weapons. They're the most armed government in the area by tens of thousands of missiles and such. And we give it all to them. We didn't even charge them for it. They're not a customer, they're a handout. And so to sit back at this point in time, and for us in Louisiana to say that we support Israel and we're there for you, and give no mention to the people who are suffering a famine, no mention to the people whose hospitals are destroyed, children who are dying left and right, the amount of time it's going to take to rebuild that area, and frankly, who's going to rebuild it? Are Israelis going to build it for settlers? Because that's been the pattern for the last 70 years. And so if we're going to sit back and talk about caring about other people and be pro-life, we should care about everybody. October 7th was a tragedy. And we can care about that, and we can hold that in one hand at the same time, consider that not just what's happened since then is a tragedy, but also what's happening today, tomorrow, the next day, the day after that, and the year after that. Now, there's going to be some great testimony coming up behind me, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think you understand that our position is that people who are suffering need our support. Israel's got all the guns over there. They don't need any more support. It's the Palestinians who are being crushed who need the support. I oppose this resolution at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Let's see. Hakeem Huvad.
Right.
Please introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah. My name is Dr. Hakom Murad.
I'm with the Shura Council. This is a group that represents the greater New Orleans region mosques, about 8 mosques that are involved. I'm deeply troubled by SCR 21, a resolution that fails to acknowledge the 75 years of suffering endured by the Palestinian people. Let us not be misled by the one-sided narrative presented in this resolution. SCR 21 overlooks the atrocities committed by against the Palestinian people and disregards the urgent needs for accountability and redress. By endorsing this resolution, we risk legitimizing oppressive policies and turning a blind eye to systemic injustices. As Louisianians committed to justice and equality, we must advocate for policies that prioritize the rights and dignity for all individuals, regardless of their nationality or background. It is our duty to stand against any resolution that absolves guilt for the murder of 40,000 Palestinians in the past 7 months alone, 70% of which are children and women. Let us not forget the origins of this resolution. SCR 21 is not a grassroots initiative born out of genuine concern for the well-being of our constituents. It is crafted and championed by AIPAC and Christians United for Israel, and now I just learned also by Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who is actually currently undergoing an ICC, warrant for his arrest. It is crafted and championed by these groups, whose interests lie far from the welfare of the people of Louisiana. There are more displaced Palestinians due to Israel's 75 years of land theft and apartheid than there are Israelis in Louisiana. This is a fact. Furthermore, this resolution was brought forth by Senator Valerie Hodges, that you guys know very well, and she is a known Islamophobe. Her track record of discriminatory remarks and actions cannot be ignored. She equated religious with Christian in her support for other programs. An example was for supports for schools, public funding for private schools. She even went as far as to express concerns that funding might end up in radical Islam schools, thousands of which she says are available. I am a Muslim in this Louisiana state, and I am not aware of thousands of Muslim schools. Showcasing her Islamophobic tendencies. Her ties to organizations like Christians United for Israel, known for their extremist views and end-time prophecies that require the eradication of Palestinians. In fact, the word eradicate was in the original text of SCR 21, and it had to be redacted. Raise serious questions about the intentions behind this resolution. This resolution also conveniently overlooks the fact that Israel holds almost 10,000 Palestinian hostages, including 200 children, many of which are in administrative detention, they're in inhuman conditions, and they are not known what they're under trial for. It fails to condemn the brutal terror campaign waged against innocent Palestinian civilian women and children. The loss of innocent lives cannot be ignored, and the ongoing ethnic cleansing and genocide is what demands our attention and our condemnation today, not memorializing Israel. As people of faith, we are called upon to be voices for the voiceless, to speak truth to power, and to uphold the dignity and worth of every human being. May you have the courage to do what is right, even when it is difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions for you. Representative Bayham.
It's all right. You're going to have trouble seeing.
You're going to have to look on the screen.
Okay.
The pillars holding up the building block the way.
The way this room is designed is not very helpful. I have 2 questions, sir. I've been to Israel twice, and I've been to the Palestinian communities in East Jerusalem. My first question is, do you condemn the attack by Hamas terrorists on Israel on October 7th?
I appreciate the question. We must look first at just like Bruce mentioned earlier, the loss of life is tragic, always. But in the greater context of 75 years of apartheid and the fact that Gaza Strip is the open largest air prison since 2006, 2007, one must wonder, what is the reasoning for their actions? And I would look for the international community, the UN, who is in charge of these things for guidance on this. Specifically, when they themselves call this a genocide. So, if we condemn, Bayham, if you condemn Hamas, and that is your right, then I condemn Israel for the genocide that's ongoing right now. And if there's a resolution to memorialize Israel, then there's a resolution to memorialize Palestine, and for us to support them in their time of need against this genocide, and to support the over 20 to 30,000 Palestinians in the state of Louisiana who are displaced because of Israel's crimes for the last 75 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bayham. Representative Larverdane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Sir, what is the ICC?
International Criminal Court.
Is that
It's-
part of the World Court?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah, it is the International Criminal
Is that
Court.
based in, excuse me, is that based in Switzerland? Where is it based?
It might be the Hague. I
Hague
think they're
is-
very close. The ICJ and the ICC are both, I think, a couple of blocks apart in the Hague.
Explain that process real quickly.
Yeah, so they have several UN nations they get cycled through and elected, and they have UN special rapporteurs, and or they have people who go and look at these different cases, and they've actually been looking at Israel. Bruce mentioned this too for a very long time. Specifically, it was the land theft and the annexation of the West Bank. The Gaza has been since 2007 hasn't been touched, but in the West Bank there's been a lot of annexed land theft. So these were already under investigation, and then starting October 7th, they've been under investigation for humanitarian war crimes, which include the dropping of white phosphorus. I have images, and I can show you them myself if you'd like.
Cool. A white
Yes, a chemical agent, white phosphorus. It not only burns the skin, but it's not able to be washed off. And they wouldn't have hospitals to wash it off anyway, because they've all been destroyed. All their universities have been destroyed. All their infrastructure have been destroyed.
I've never been to that area. What large of land is the Gaza Strip? Because that's what we're constantly fighting over that land. What size of land we're talking about?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The Gaza Strip is actually only about a mile wide, and it's about a marathon. Yeah, a mile.
1 mile?
1 mile wide.
And we've been fighting over that land for years.
So that's I think that's what the misconception is. So the Gaza Strip is not near Jerusalem, where Representative Bayham has visited. The Gaza Strip is facing the Mediterranean Sea. It is It is essentially landlocked because they actually keep a barricade of warships around it to keep people from going to the beach into that area. So it is, and then it's also being landlocked by Egypt, which is again they keep control of the border on the behalf of Israel. So these people have nowhere to go. Currently, there are 2 million people displaced in an area called Rafah, which is south of Gaza. So they started their invasion from the north, and they started bombing these places, and now they're in the south. And in the south, there's 2 million people, almost in the size of a couple blocks, all stacked, living in tents because they were displaced there.
So it's one big ghetto projects because you have so many folks in poverty and so forth?
Yeah, and they weren't originally like that. They were not in tents. They obviously were living in the north. They had homes, but since they bombed actually 70% of the infrastructure, 70% of the houses, buildings are currently under rubble, and so much rubble that I work in cancer studies, so this is my field of expertise. These buildings were built at a time they're not allowed to bring in new construction materials. So during the time it was built, these buildings have asbestos as part of their cement, and it's all going through the air. Even if there is a ceasefire tomorrow and justice is restored, many of these people will not live much past 50 years old due to mesothelioma. And I think we're all familiar. We've seen the commercials. When you breathe that much particulates and pollutants in the air, when you're exposed to that much chemical weapons, when you've exposed to that much bombings, would that also leave traces of heavy metals and make the land untillable? You can't farm on that land. These people will not. This will have generational effects. And it may be, some estimates, is 100 to 200 years to ever restore the Gaza Strip. And this is, nowhere near, I shouldn't say nowhere near, but is not even Jerusalem.
What kind of doctor are you, sir?
I'm a biomedical engineer. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. So I do cancer studies.
Okay. You work in New Orleans?
I work in New Orleans, yes, sir.
Okay.
Ochsner Health Center.
I'm watching the tragedies in the nightly news, the bombing, the children, the hospitals, the killing. What can we do to just stop the killings? We want peace in the area. And it's not our obligation, it's more on the federal level, but we want peace. We want to stop the killing. I see those children, orphans, people fighting to survive. I'm horrified when I see the news. What can we do to stop the killings? Because I'm sick of it.
It truly warms my heart to hear that there are people who care. I will start with that. So I appreciate you saying that, Representative, and it shouldn't be difficult. I think I have so many images. I wake up to this every morning. They began their invasion of this small area, Rafah, this ghetto, as now it's become, and images come out, and you see people carrying their children, and so many orphans, like you mentioned. And I've cried almost every day since October 7th, and I've been crying my entire life every time I think about things that have happened. So I'm originally from the West Bank. I was born here, but I've lived there for many years. And so I've seen it firsthand. You know, my own sisters were actually abducted and held hostage for a couple days. And then after that, my father, who had and my mother who had U.S. citizenship, said, we can't take this anymore, and we came here.
Let me ask you another question. 'Cause how do we separate and get peace in the region?
Yeah, so I'll focus on that.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so one, you mentioned this, it's a federal level, you know, but no, I think it starts with the individual person. That's why I started there. I think we each have to recognize, one, become educated on the topic. And I don't think that's incredibly difficult to do. I think, like you mentioned, you watch it on the news, it's become a more of a popular topic now, is to educate yourself. And then on every stage, including from city councils to state representation, Senate and House, to to our Congress, and then our House and our Senate at the federal level, we have to speak up. The same way that people have spoke up for Israel, the same way Senator Hodges does it, is we have to speak up for Palestine. And there was an agreed upon, originally the UN divided, Palestine and Israel in a two-state solution. I'm not particularly in favor of one or the other. I think that the Palestine was originally a place that had Jewish people, Christian people, and Muslim people before the founding of Israel. All of these people lived in peace. So there exists a possibility that everyone can live in peace. And if you cannot tolerate living next to a neighbor because they are Palestinian, then if you think that you are above them and they are less than and they don't deserve to be in that particular place, then you shouldn't be living in that country. That is my particular view.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your answer, sir.
I have a quick question for you,
sir.
too.
Mr. Chairman.
Would you agree that it's a complicated situation?
I try to stay away from. I think it's easier to say that. I think that when 75 years of displacement and apartheid and being a second-class citizen and not having your own state,
This goes back much further than 75 years.
In terms of Palestine and Israel, it's only been 75 years since 1940s.
But the whole turmoil amongst the cultures has gone back for millenniums. I mean, it's not as easy as everyone tries to make it sound. And I mean, just you in your testimony when representing, I'm just going to the complicated nature of it is where I am.
I understand.
Even when in your testimony you talked about looking at oneself in it, and when Representative Baham asked you with the Hamas, condemning Hamas, you had difficulty doing it, and which is fine. It's your right to be able to do that. But if we're looking at oneself and we can't condemn violent actions, even mentioned in your testimony, it's just not that plain and simple, and it's complicated. And here in the U.S., we have our enemies are a little bit further distant than they have in the Middle East and in Israel, and it's not as black and white as many would want to make it appear. But thank you for your testimony. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and there are more people who are willing to speak, so maybe they'll give you some comments.
So members, we have a stack of cards that would like to speak. So in the essence of time, just let's keep moving. And if folks don't want to, if you end up not wanting to speak, just wave and say that you're not interested in speaking. Lana Murad. And if I mispronounce your name, please just correct it on the record and introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Lana Murad. I I oppose LA SCR 21, and I urge you guys to vote against it. This resolution intentionally harms Palestinian communities in Louisiana and perpetuates Israeli propaganda, which has led to the murder of 40,000 innocent people, the average age being only 5 years old. We are in a pivotal moment in time. You, the people, are being watched, not only by constituents, but by God. Know that American Israeli Political Action Committee, AIPAC, and Christians United for Israel will go down in history as terrorist groups and be regarded the same as Nazi sympathizers in 1930s Germany while this genocide is going on. And you too will be on record supporting a genocide if you vote for this resolution. We will remember, your kids will remember and live in shame of this record. Your reputation is on the line, and you gain nothing from supporting this biased resolution, supporting a foreign apartheid state. You would gain far more standing with the oppressed and disenfranchised. I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
We have a question, Representative Bayham.
Good morning. I have one very simple question. Do you condemn the Hamas killing of 364 concert goers at the Negev Desert concert?
I condemn the killing of 40,000 indigenous Palestinian people on their own land.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bayham. The board's clear. Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Ariel Moyal.
Good morning. My name is Ariel Moyal. I'm coming here as a member of the New Orleans Jewish community. I come here as a representative of this Jewish community to make it clear that this bill does not represent us. My Jewish community is horrified at the unequivocal support for Israel's war crimes that SCR 21 espouses. My Jewish values teach me tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. My Jewish values tell me that genocide is never okay, no matter what. To align Louisiana with a genocidal campaign against Palestinians makes Jews in Louisiana less safe by aligning us with reprehensible state violence. We Jewish community members of New Orleans are not a monolith, and many of us oppose Israel's actions in Palestine. The Louisiana Jewish community does not want this violence to be perpetrated in our name. This resolution does not represent Jewish community. Even hundreds of thousands of people in Israel are marching in the street to demand an end to Israel's endless war on Gaza. Thousands of your own constituents across Louisiana, from New Orleans to Shreveport, have been marching the streets, making comments, calling representatives, because we see what is happening in Gaza for what it really is, a devastation. As has already been said, 70% of Gaza's infrastructure has been bombed. Hospitals have been bombed. Refugee camps have been bombed. People have fled bombings to try to find any semblance of safety, to only find more bombs. Over 15,000 children have been killed. The idea that any of this unbelievable violence is justified to protect Jewish safety is in and of itself anti-Semitic. To equate Israel's indiscriminate violence with Jewish safety is false and is dangerous. The resolution characterizes Israel as a strategic partner of the United States and overlooks the internationally recognized human rights abuses committed by the Israeli government with impunity. By aligning with Israel without holding it accountable for its violations of international law, the United States and this Louisiana legislature undermines its own credibility and moral authority on the global stage. On behalf of my Jewish community, I urge you to reject this resolution and instead to advocate for policies that uphold the principles of justice, equality, and respect for human rights for all peoples, regardless of nationality or ethnicity. I urge you to have the courage to do is right here in the midst of this genocide. As Representative LeVardane earlier stated, he asked how can we bring peace to this region? And I do believe this is the first step to have courage to speak out against a genocide that is happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bayham for a question.
Good morning. Have you publicly called for the release of the 128 hostages taken by Hamas that are still being held in captivity?
I have no jurisdiction over that. I will call for the release of the thousands of political prisoners and hostages that Israel currently has in its prisons, including and majority children.
You good? All right. Thank you for your testimony. Fionn Hunter Green.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Finn. I am an early childhood educator from New Orleans, Louisiana. Some of my points have been made already this morning, but I think it's worth restating them because I think we're all learning this morning. I teach Jewish students, I teach Muslim students, I teach Arab students, and all their families, our community in New Orleans, is horrified at the language in this resolution. I think it's good to take a step back and look at the facts right now. As we speak, Israel is indiscriminately bombing a tent city full of displaced people, full of refugees. If you can picture the map of New Orleans, coming from this bend in the river, going up to City Park, that is approximately the size of this place that's called Rafah. There's 1.5 million people there. Currently, this is the most densely populated place on Earth. And the Israeli military is indiscriminately bombing children, families, mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandchildren, uncles, aunts, you name it, they are dying indiscriminately. While that's happening, today, the Israeli occupation army prepares to launch a full-scale ground slaughter of these children and their families. So voting against this resolution is not a vote for terrorism. Quite the opposite. Voting against this bill is a vote against genocide. It's a vote against injustice. It's a vote against the murder of more than 15,000 children over the last 7 months. 15,000. Vote against this bill, and you personally will be setting your record straight as a legislator of conscience who stands for justice, for humanity, for rights for everyone around the world, regardless of your religion or your national origin. I want to take a second to highlight the citizens of New Orleans who have been directly affected by this. Two names that we all need to remember by the end of today. Samaha Esmail is a woman from New Orleans, and Tawfiq Abdul-Jabbar is a child from Gretna, Louisiana. First, Samaha. She was stolen from her home by Israeli forces without her medication. She's a cancer patient. And she faces military court for posting online on social media. A soldier shot young Tawfiq Abdul-Jabbar, he's 17 years old, shot him dead for being somewhere that the soldier didn't want him to be. These are American citizens, Palestinian Americans who hold American citizenship, who were murdered by the State of Israel. In light of these considerations, I strongly urge you to reject SCR 21, and instead, let's advocate for policies that uphold our common principles: justice, equality, respect for human rights. If I can be frank with you all this morning, please let me. This bill is a really bad look for Louisiana. As we've seen over the past weeks, through the peaceful demonstrations on college campuses across the nation, Palestinian rights are something that this country cares about deeply. I worry that you will all be tarnishing your reputation as statesmen that you have worked so hard and long to achieve if you support this resolution. The resolution appears to support apartheid and genocide, and I hope that you do not. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question, Representative Bayham.
Sir, you had mentioned that you're in education. Are you disturbed
That's correct.
by the uptick in anti-Semitic rhetoric that's taking place in college campuses right now?
I do not see an uptick in anti-Semitic language. In fact, I see our Jewish and non-Jewish brothers and sisters banding together to say no to this genocide. Next question.
The board's clear. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Hala Asker. Okay, she waves, but she's in opposition. She does not wish to speak. Adam Murad. I don't have my glasses on, but
It's okay. Happens every day.
with the last name of Boye, I get it as well. Please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Haden Murad.
Oh.
I'm not with an organization. Good morning, Chairman Boye. Good morning, representatives. I've come out to strongly oppose SCR 21, or the LA Genocide Resolution, as it's come to be known. I urge you not to let your name be synonymous with genocide, too. I'm a Palestinian American, so I don't know if you've been watching like I've been watching for over 200 days, but over 40,000 people have been murdered by Israeli forces since October 7th. Unfortunately, Senator Hodges has purposefully not been watching. Despite a remarkable 13 years of Shirley being well paid by AIPAC and Christians United for Israel, she has neither the context nor the authority to speak in favor of the settler colony of Israel. Representatives, I've been screaming out for 200 days trying to get people in power in this moment in my home city in New Orleans to meet the demands of their people and show up in this atrocious moment in history. At every step, I've been met with resistance because speaking on foreign affairs is not in their job description. And yet, SCR 21 proves that this logic only applies to Palestine, despite the tens of thousands of affected Palestinians in Louisiana. Just a note for Representatives Boyd, Lyons, and Newell, who I'm not sure are still here. This matters to you because this includes 20,000 people in your districts. This includes the family of Tawfiq Abdel-Jabbar, a 17-year-old New Orleans area resident murdered by Israeli forces in January. Rep. Weibel, when you vote on this, remember your 18-year-old son. Remember that because of Israel, Tawfiq never made it to your son's age. This also includes the family of Samahed Ismail, a 46-year-old grandmother with cancer who was kidnapped by the IDF in February for posting against Israel in the United States and arrested over there. This includes a good family who have lost 200 family members in Gaza. I pray you never know that level of tragedy, and I pray you never pass resolutions supporting it. Vote no on this resolution and allow us a future where Louisiana legislation focuses on Louisiana. Representatives, now is the time. We have been showing up 24/7 for 200 days, and we can see the tides turning. After 27 years of being a Palestinian, a non-person in this world, after 76 years of the Israeli occupation of my people, I can see the tides turning. History is on our side, God is on our side, and selfishly, there is no feeling like watching the world wake up to what I have always known. If not for me, if not for the millions of Palestinians waiting to die in Rafah, make the choice for your own reputation. We are watching. God is watching. Vote no on SCR 21.
Thank you. Representative Baham for a question.
Thank you. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist as a nation state?
I don't believe Israel has a right to exist as a nation state. Thanks.
Representative Weibel for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the opportunity that you have to come to the table, and since you decided to call me and my son out,
I love your son. I hope he has a long life.
I feel the need to respond. So he's actually 20 now, and he's serving in the United States Air Force. Mm-hmm. My oldest son served 6 years in the United States Air Force, part of Special Operations, Intel, and he protected freedom all over this country, all over this world, just as my youngest son is doing now. A young man who's like a son to me served 5 years in the United States Navy. In the interest of freedom and for what is right, and in the interest of October 7, I will happily vote for my sons for this resolution. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Weibel.
If I could respond. I think your sons are going to grow up and be very disappointed in you because the future is going to tell that this is the wrong choice.
He wasn't asking you a question, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony.
Anyways. They were Nazi sympathizers. They're wrong.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Nisha Shetty. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Anisha Shetty. I live in Orleans Parish, and I urge you to stand against SCR 21. This resolution is not only incredibly distorted, but it's a grave injustice to the Palestinian people, disregarding the history and harsh realities they face every day before and after October 7th. This is a local issue because our federal and even state taxes fund the Israeli military. We cannot remain complicit in funding human rights violations with our tax dollars and arming a genocide with American-made weaponry. SCR 21 fails to acknowledge the egregious war crimes, indiscriminate attacks on civilians, and ethnic cleansing perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people. Despite having the world's most sophisticated weaponry, Israel is systematically flattening sacred places, cities, Israeli and Palestinian civilians, and truth in favor of a land grab. By turning a blind eye to these atrocities, it perpetuates a one-sided narrative that legitimizes Israel's oppressive policies and systemic injustices. The resolution absolves Israel of accountability for the murder of over 40,000 Palestinians in the past 7 months, shifting blame onto Hamas for deaths caused by Israeli forces. It fails to condemn the brutal terror campaign against innocent Palestinian civilian women and children. Israel's policy of arbitrarily detaining Palestinians, including children, without charge or trial is an egregious violation of their basic human rights. Over 9,100 political prisoners, including our own Samahar Ismail from the Greater New Orleans area, suffer in captivity without access to essential medical care. The ongoing siege and blockade of Gaza amount to nothing short of ethnic cleansing and genocide. Palestinian communities are systemically targeted and displaced with their homes and livelihoods destroyed. Instead of SCR 21, we should be advocating for a resolution that calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, the release of all hostages, Israelis and Palestinians arbitrarily detained by Israel, unrestricted humanitarian assistance into Gaza, the restoration of electricity, water, food, and medical supplies to Gaza, and respect for international law by all. Nearly 1 in 3 Gazans are at risk of starving to death. Recent reports of mass graves with hundreds of Palestinians, including children, stripped naked and buried alive are horrifying reminders of the urgent need for accountability and justice. We cannot turn a blind eye to these atrocities while claiming to stand for justice and human rights. I'm proud of the university students and activists across the country and the world standing against genocide. They embody the courage, integrity, and passion for justice that the journalistic, political, and legal establishments across the entire Western world seem to lack. As a representative of the people of Louisiana, and not Benjamin Netanyahu, I urge you to stand on the right side of history and vote against SCR 21. Let us uphold the values of justice, compassion, and human rights for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Baham, for a question.
Good morning. You mentioned that you support justice. Did you condemn the kidnapping of 240 Israeli civilians by Hamas terrorists?
I think October 7th, which was my birthday, was a tragedy, and every day since it has been a tragedy. I think that the hostages should be returned, which is what Hamas has offered, I think 2 days even after, and Israel has turned them down. So if we care so much about the hostages, we should be in favor of a permanent ceasefire because that calls for the return of all hostages.
Thank you, Representative Baham. The board's clear. Thank you for your testimony. We have Ms. Lama Hantash. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Lama Buhantash, and I'm a Palestinian living in Louisiana, and I've lived in Zachary, Louisiana pretty much all my life, and I'm here to oppose SCR 21. I just want to repeat the name Tawfiq Ajak Abdul-Jabbar and wonder where the condemnation of this Louisiana native, this New Orleans native's death was at the hands of the Israeli military. Still waiting on that one. So while we debate this bill instead, or this resolution instead, I want to just say that it, first of all, draws a line of contradiction between my Palestinian and American identities by pitting my government against my nationality, by supporting the genocide of my people. This bill directly violates the will of the people of Louisiana, who have regularly been assembling in the thousands all across the state against the genocide. We have not seen similar numbers to support the pro-Zionist, pro-Israeli genocide. This bill furthermore rewards the terrorism of the Israeli state, which has ignored the ceasefire resolution brokered by the American allies Egypt and Qatar and accepted by Hamas to release the hostages and end the war and the genocide. I know I'm going to get asked the same question everybody's been asked, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that we must reject the notion of a transcendent evil whose only recourse would be the impossible and barbaric task of eliminating resistance to Israeli apartheid and occupation. We must reject this idea of the transcendent evil in the case of Palestine and in the case of Israel. This genocide underway right now has been structurally incentivized for decades by an international order that has given carte blanche to the Israeli state. First, in 1948, by giving 70% of the people, 70%, giving 30% of the land to 70% of the people, including. Appreciate it. Including giving my own family's home to the Israeli state, which is now actually an Israeli national park, and you can go sit in the ruins of my grandfather's house. I have had the opportunity to do so using my American citizenship, and on the way, I was put in a cage by the Israeli military as they interrogated me for several hours, just on the basis of my name being Lama Abu Hantash. And there was no condemnation of that. Anywho, so Israel has operated with carte blanche, not only in the Nakba, but also right now, not just in the genocide, but in the West Bank, with respect to the land it continuously seizes illegally to create illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which is a crime against the Geneva Conventions. Since October 7th, Israel has seized 27,000 dunams, about 27 kilometers of Palestinian land, including my family's land, allegedly for, they actually don't really give much of a reason, so I'm going to ignore that. It's just flagrantly obvious that this is a land grab, not only in the West Bank, but also in Gaza, where Israeli officials, senior officials, have repeatedly stated their desires to, and publicly plotted to seize the whole of Gaza and to rebuild it into an Israeli settlement. And this land grab requires the murder and displacement of the 2 million Gazans who are now sheltering in place inside of a tent city. And they will not stop until these people have been evacuated and eviscerated. This is, again, not just a benign transcendental evil that we can't fight. This is a structural issue. This is the result of the fact that Israel has faced no consequences for any of its actions for the past 75 years and has in fact received outright support from the international order. And we, the United States, are the head of that international hydra, and it is time that we use our power to say enough. Because if the United States stopped supplying Israel with all the weapons with which they carry out this violence, if the United States condemned these actions, including the illegal settlement of the West Bank, the genocide would be over, peace would reign, we could have it all in a minute. But we refuse for political propaganda, for personal agendas that absolutely fly in the face of humanity and in the face of all conscience and will look poorly in the eyes of history. So I appreciate you having us here today to speak our testimony, and now I can answer the question that's going to be asked.
All right, well, let's go to Representative Baham and get that out the way. Representative Baham.
I'd hate to disappoint. Actually, I have just a few questions with a follow-up. Do you know who Hirsch Goldberg Pullen is?
I do not.
Hirsch Goldberg Pullen is an American that is being held hostage by Hamas. He was kidnapped at the concert venue, and he had lost an arm while being taken into captivity. My first question is, do you believe that this man who was kidnapped, an American citizen, who lost an arm, should be released by Hamas?
I do believe that as per the ceasefire resolution that Hamas accepted, that he would be released if he's still alive, given that Israel has been relentlessly bombing every single person in that region and has killed multiple hostages themselves. So should he have survived Israel's brutal bombing campaign, I pray for his release.
Well, he is alive because he was used in a compelled Hamas propaganda video showing his wound. Now, do you condemn Hamas using a hostage for the production of a propaganda video?
I condemn the use or the recent murder of a Palestinian doctor through torture, in Israeli prisons, as they tried to get him to renounce the resistance, and he died doing so. And he was a doctor in the world's largest open-air prison.
Thank you. Representative Weibel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to invoke the 3-minute rule.
Okay. Any objection to adopting the 3-minute rule? Seeing no objection, we're going to go ahead and do that. Representative Larverdane for a question.
Ma'am, you talked about the ceasefire. Explain the process of a ceasefire. Do we have it in place, or how do we get it in place? Because we normally don't deal with these issues. We deal with state, local issues. This is normally on a federal issue, and Senator Hodges constantly brings these issues to the forefront.
Thank you, Representative Larverdane.
Talk about that, because we want the killing to stop. We want peace. We don't want to watch children and people being killed every day on the news. That's not what we want. And also, America's spending a ton of money over there. We want peace. We want peace.
Absolutely.
In this country and over there too. Talk about that,
yes.
ma'am.
Thank you for your question. So essentially, American allies, likely through the use of like American support, Egypt and Qatar have presented a ceasefire resolution to both Hamas and to the Israeli government. Hamas accepted the ceasefire to
Hamas has accepted it?
Yes, they accepted it to release the hostages and end the genocide. Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he would continue the invasion of Rafah, where 2 million Palestinians are currently sheltering, regardless of a ceasefire resolution, and has yet to comment publicly on the accepted ceasefire by Hamas, and in fact is invading Rafah right now.
Will Hamas, if they agree to it, will they stop the killings, and can we encourage the Jewish settlements to stop the killings?
Yeah, that's what the ceasefire was intending to do. So long as we believe them in saying that when they've said they've signed on and they accepted it, then yes. And we have no reason to believe that Hamas would violate the ceasefire, because routinely ceasefires have been used in the context of Gaza and Israel. Actually, there's a long history of Israel conducting a practice that they internally within their government call mowing the lawn. And essentially every couple of years, they will bomb Gaza, mow the lawn to keep their population low. And when that happens, Hamas usually responds with rocket fire, which usually doesn't accomplish much because they have an Iron Dome missile structure.
It's tit for tat.
So it's tit for tat. Okay. And usually the ceasefire is broken by Israel so basically they operate on kind of a permanent ceasefire basis, where it's just one ceasefire after another. Each time it's been broken by the Israeli practice of mowing the lawn, of just randomly bombing Gaza, usually when there's problems in the Israeli internal domestic front.
And I know the president has been begging the sides to come together to stop the killing. Is that correct?
I don't know how much he's been begging. He's been pretty flagrant in his support for Israel. Now, he did say that he did not support the invasion of Rafah. So now they're looking like, okay, we want this ceasefire, but it's already too late.
Okay.
I guess it looks like.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Larverdane. Thank you for your testimony.
Appreciate it.
We have one more. Just turned it in. Imad Nofal. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Imad Nofal. I live here in Baton Rouge, and I represent myself at this point. Yeah, I I definitely oppose this bill that is presented to the respected panel, and I really don't have a lot of talking points, so I'm not going to bother you with much, but I can tell you I have a family consists of, we counted, last count was 88 of my extended family. I'm the only one who decided to immigrate to this country, and I never helped any of my family to come here. But now all of them, 12 houses has been destroyed completely. All of them live in tents. Some of them has been taken in. One of them is my cousin, and he's married to my sister. This man was 75 years old, and now for 4.5 months, we don't have any record or know where he at. And he is exactly like at least thousands of people I know. The times I can talk to my family, they really reach a point of starvation. They couldn't find sometimes food. There is no electricity for 216, today is the 217. They don't have clean water most of the time. And that brings them back to, all of them, I'm talking about my family, are 1947 refugees from their original villages who took refuge and settled in Gaza. So this is not their first. Most of the people who has immigrated and has been forced to leave their homes in historical Palestine, denied their right to go back to their homes. Most of them died now, or they're older age. But now I've been teased by a couple of my nephews that now we wish if our grandparents wake up from dead to tell them that we've been subjected to more what they have been telling us that they have been subjected to. So all I'm saying is, I can imagine, like when I'm listening to everybody, it looks like our local representatives, respected representative, they don't really dig much in what's going on all over the world. And just they are affected by the word Israel. Like when the word Israel on the banner, everybody get alerted. Yeah, and I see the questions. Of course, killing anybody, whether he is an Israeli, Palestinian, Arab, a Jew, is a horrible thing. Nobody wants to see that.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Representative Baham for a question.
I want to just thank you for your heartfelt and sincere testimony and for you sharing the experiences your family has endured throughout the years over in Israel. And just wanted to thank you for taking time. I know you're a business owner in the community, and you had to make a sacrifice to be here today. So I just wanted to thank you for your presence and contributing to the discourse.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative Baham. Thank you for your testimony. The board is clear. Appreciate you. One more card just turned in. Miss Melissa Flournoy would like to speak.
Thank you, Representative Bolio. My name is Melissa Flournoy. I'm sorry, I just butchered your name.
I butchered names all morning, so no offense taken.
That's what I love about Louisiana, is that we have people of all faiths from many countries who live here in Louisiana. And one of the things that I love about Louisiana is our respect for culture, our respect for religion, our respect for the complexity of human emotion. And this is actually one of the most complex issues of our time, Representative Larvadain. I think what happened on October the 7th was horrible, tragic, terrorist event, okay? Similar to what happened to the United States on September 11th of 2001. And our response to September 11th, 2001 was a military overreaction. Some of the heartfelt comments of these young people, I just want us to just breathe in and hear their pain and hear their beliefs and their heartfelt testimony. You know, this is an international issue. I don't think that SCR 21 serves a positive purpose for this committee or our state because of the complexity of this issue. And so I would say that this is above our pay grade to take sides in an international diplomatic event. And I would ask you to keep this SCR in the committee. Because there is so much confusion and so much pain and so much historical conflict. The State of Israel was created after World War II as an effort as a homeland for Jewish immigrants after the Holocaust. There were decisions made as we redrew the lines of the Middle East countries. We are still dealing with the ramifications of that jurisdictional realignment. And there are issues that need to be developed over diplomatically as well as internationally to address some of these concerns. So I come to you today as a political scientist and a historian to say, let's recognize the pain of our local Louisiana people, both those in favor of a Jewish state, those in favor of a Palestinian state. I worked for the RAND Corporation many years ago. I have one sentence. And they developed a two-state solution. These are really complicated issues. And so I would just ask that we recognize the pain of the people of Louisiana and hold this resolution in the committee. Thank you.
All right, we have another card that was just turned in. Israel Heller. If there's any other cards, turn them in because this is going to be the last one speaking. Israel, please introduce yourself for the record.
Greetings, board. My name is Israel Heller. I'm here as a representative of No Ship and JVP, New Orleans Stop Helping Israel's Ports, and Jewish Voice for Peace. I would like to say that my family has been avid supporters of Palestine who have lived in Palestine since the 19th century. They were there before the Zionist state came in and decided to speak for all Jews on this matter, and they've always rejected it. I first moved to Israel when I was 17, and for rabbinical school, essentially. And I won't forget, everywhere I looked, there was graffiti on Jerusalem streets. Maves l'kol Aravim, death to all the Arabs, was the most common tags I saw there. This was 2007. Cut to 2016. I was in a meeting with 9 other young Jewish American leaders on a fellowship program called Dorot, which sends 10 young Jews to Israel every year. We had a meeting with Dr. Chagi Ben Artzi, who is the brother-in-law of Benjamin Netanyahu. He is Sarah Netanyahu's brother. And they're all still pretty close-knit. This is someone who would see the prime minister regularly for obvious reasons. He decided to open up his remarks to our group by saying, if Israel had done it right, they would have killed all the Palestinians in 1947. This is the position of people in the inner circle of the current prime minister. I think that is important to bear on this discussion. The idea that Jews everywhere need a specific state, especially a state that is knowingly and on the open historical record colonized another entire people, is wrong and not non-factual. It does not speak for all Jews, does not speak for Judaism. It can't speak for Judaism. Judaism doesn't believe in theft. Judaism doesn't believe in the mass murder we're seeing. I know that this board has been asking about the actions of October 7th. I would like to focus on the year leading up to October 7th, which was the deadliest year for Palestinians in Palestine, in the West Bank. They were murdered at a rate of at least 1 Palestinian a day by Israelis with no recourse. None of these things happen in a vacuum. And this resolution is ahistorical and is pretending that these things happen in a vacuum. and it's wrong. And it's wrong not just because of all the testimony you heard here today, of the locals who've been killed by this entity that this resolution seeks to support. So I'm here to say that this state of Israel does not speak for all Jews, does not speak for Judaism, and that Israel should not be supported in its occupation and genocide of Palestine and Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. All right, we have all right. So we have some other cards. I'll just read in opposition, not wishing to speak. Manal Ahmed, Elka Catino, Marianne Mushat, Debbie Oscar, maybe, or having trouble with the handwriting a little bit. Christina Casas, Michelle Ehrenberg. Can't understand this handwriting. Maybe Mary Alice Hernandez, Ethan Broslon, Janahi Gerardo, and y'all can understand why I wasn't critical of mispronunciation of my name. Peyton Michelle, Charlie Barlow, Halamana, Rocio Aguilar, and Indietz. So to close on your resolution, Senator Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. I really appreciate you taking the time. I apologize I do want to clear up a couple of things, though, what my resolution does. I think there's some misunderstanding. If you actually read the resolution, it is condemning Hamas no less than 18 times. Every line of the first page and half of the second page is condemning Hamas, which is a terrorist organization that murders people, that is on the State Department's watch list as a terrorist group. That's what my resolution is doing, is condemning those actions on October 7th and after and before the things that they did. The people in this room could not condemn those actions. Many of them could not condemn those actions. But my bill does not create a two-state solution. It is a resolution stating that we want to support our greatest ally in the Middle East and condemn those actions of Hamas. That's all it does, sending a message to Congress.
Would you like to take a question on closed? Representative Weibel has a question for, if you're willing to. Sure. Representative Weibel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, thank you for bringing this. This is important. I also wanted to just use the opportunity to speak how proud I am of my alma mater, the students at LSU, how they stood up for right last week. I wanted to go on record with that, and I'm not sure if anyone's moved favorable at this point, but I'll certainly be honored to do that.
Thank you.
Representative Baham had beat you to that. Representative Owen, is that something you wanted to add, or with this closing?
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I was in another committee. I just came to sit in support of my colleague, Senator Hodges. Hamas is wicked at their core. They have done terrible, terrible things to civilians. I've spent my entire life, first as a military officer and as a contractor, studying bad guys, and they are the worst of the worst. They did unspeakable things, and it's okay to call things that are unspeakable when they're unspeakable. So thank you, Senator Hodges.
Thank you, Representative Owen. I appreciate that. So with that said, just to keep in mind, if you read the resolution, this is condemning a terrorist organization, Hamas, and I would just ask for your favorable passage.
Thank you. Representative Baham has made a motion that we report SCR 21 favorable. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, SCR 21 will be reported favorably. Thank you.